Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Kingdom of Dreams podcast. I'm your host, Jawad Mir. Today's guest is Jherek Bischoff. He's a music composer for a film called Exhibiting Forgiveness, which you probably have not heard of. I did not hear of it until I was reached out by the agent of the music composer and got the screener, saw the film, and I was blown away. It was one of the most amazing pieces of film that I have not that I have seen in a while. A pure drama relationship between a father and a son, an artist and a broken family, and what a great and powerful film. I would let you hear and watch the discussion and kind of get more sense of the film and the music composer. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Jherek Bischoff. But good to have you, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining to talk about exhibiting forgiveness. It's a very
Abs-
interesting title. I won't lie,
yeah.
I've never come across that, but I did not expect what I was going to watch. I didn't know anything about
Okay.
it. I started watching it sort of on my iPad while I was doing some work, and it hooked me on so quickly that I
Mm,
had to shut it down and then watch it later in the evening on the TV screen.
right on,
Um,
man.
because what a great film, what a powerful performance. I just like it was just great. I was not expecting that in any way.
Right on. Yeah, it's I think a lot of people don't really know what to expect and are getting hit that same way of just like, it's heavy, but it's so beautiful and looks so nice and the performances of those actors is just absolutely amazing. And the way Titus is woven in his artwork into the film and the how an artist is portrayed is refreshing and a person's relationship to their art and how um it feels like a real version, not the Hollywood version. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's it's I mean the whole movie feels like a real version, not the Hollywood version. So it was amazing to be a part of.
yeah. It's so true. And then what's so sad is that we live in a time where movies like if this was made in the 90s, it
Hmm.
would be like everybody would be talking about it, right? Like, because
Totally.
now
Yeah.
things have changed so much. Such great films come out, and I didn't know anything about it. Not many people know about these kind of films, so it's kind of really sad in
Totally.
that sense.
It is, yeah, I know. It's been interesting to watch the rollout because yeah, it's been having a hard time finding an audience in the theater, but every single person that sees it, I mean, the reviews are like so glowing and great. So I'm hoping when it goes to streaming, it will
Yeah,
open up a much larger audience and get some more eyes on it
for sure, man.
and
Well,
ears.
yes, yes. Ears. Speaking of ears,
Yes.
your work speaks. Um, it is about ears. Is about evoking emotion, and it was a beautiful piece of score that came
Thank you.
in very subtle moments in the film.
Hmm.
And because of the greatness of the film and the performances, I was, I didn't really, something. I'm a huge fan of movie scores. Um, it just did not dawn upon to me like when the music was kicking, which is a great thing
Totally.
as a
Yeah,
composer for you.
totally.
But when I did sort of go back and skim through it again just to pick up your music and stuff, it was really, really cool. It was really nice to hear that.
Nice. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, with this film, it was super exciting to, read the script. And even in the script, there was a lot of uh, moments that I could tell were going to be, the storytelling was just going to be uh, the visual content and the music, and that would be pushing the story telling, not dialogue. Which there's a few scenes like that in the film, um, and then so that was exciting, but also once I started seeing the film itself, and there were certain scenes like that basement scene, the dialogue between Terrell and his father, and you know, we were all kind of like, should there be any music? And I was the first person to raise my hand and say, like, stay, like, we need to stay out of it. We don't, they don't need to
Yeah,
be elevated here at all. Like, they're giving everything we need. I just want to stay out of the way because, yeah, the
good
acting was so
call.
good. Yeah.
Good call.
So there was a lot of stuff like that in the film where it's like, um, it needed a lot less music than we all thought it did. As soon as we saw the performances, it was, yeah, it vastly changed our concept of what was needed.
Lovely, lovely.
Yeah,
Jherek, tell me about your journey. What got you into storytelling from a standpoint of music score? Well, what's your
sure.
journey like?
My journey is pretty wild. Like, it's so I started playing music at a very early age, and knew knew by like high school that music was what I wanted to do. And um, I I made a like a very conscious decision. Um, like I only went to college for about a year, and then decided to just focus on music, and school wasn't doing it for me personally. Um, and I just made a decision like I'm only going to take jobs that are music related jobs from here on out. And no matter how bad it gets, I'm only going to take music jobs. And so I ended up living in a van and living in a friend's closet for years, and like just struggling super hard, and but I was just saying yes to every music gig that came along. And through that, learned how to produce, learned how to mix and engineer. Um, and through the production stuff, actually, it was that led me to orchestral composition, because what happened was these bands would come in and they'd be like, we want some cello and some flute on this song. And so we would invite a cello and flute player over, and they would be like, what do you want me to play? And we would go, uh some cello and flute stuff, I don't know, or we'd hum a little line or something. And I quickly realized, hey, if I don't want to waste these people's time, for one thing, and we'll get a better result if I just teach myself how to write music a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfect, but just to give them a little seed of information to get us kicked off. And so that's what I did. And these bands that I was recording kept getting more and more ambitious. And there was a point in which I just muted the drums and the electric guitar and electric bass, and what was coming back was symphonic music. And not only that, but I had written every note of it. And
Mm-hmm.
this was over the course of 5 years of
Sure.
slowly kind of figuring it out. But as soon as I heard that and was like kind of stunned, I didn't realize I was even doing it or wasn't planning on doing it. It just kind of happened. I was like, huh, this is actually a thing I can do. And around that time, I heard a piece of music that changed my life forever, which was Fratres by Arvo Part. And that piece of music was actually the reason why I left college. I heard that music playing out of a classroom, barged into the classroom, grabbed the vinyl, and was like looking at it, going, "What is this? I've never heard music like this." And left school, grabbed the record at a record shop, like literally walked from school, grabbed that record, and never set foot in school again. I was just like, this is everything. Like this piece
Mhm.
of music is everything that I personally would like to express in music, and so I I got really interested in orchestral music, and that has led me to places that I never ever would have considered. So I then started making my own orchestral music, and composing and thinking of myself more as a composer than a bass player in a rock band. And um, like as soon as I started doing the orchestral stuff, um, the uphill battle that I had been kind of fighting against as a experimental rock musician for my whole life, suddenly the energy changed, and the orchestral world was kind of like, hey, like feed us, like let's do something, and so that opened up a whole world
Okay.
for me that led to me doing theater work, which was exciting, and then operas out in Germany and Switzerland, and and arranging for artists that wanted orchestral elements in their stuff, and led me to film work. So the I moved to Los Angeles because I was interested in getting into film work, um, because I realized that through all my years I had in music I had developed all these skills, and in the rock world it's not necessarily frowned upon, but to express yourself in different ways constantly is it's hard to grow a fan base. Like if one record sounds like this and another record sounds like that, it's hard to get people to understand the world. But I realized that film music took my orchestral chops, my
Mm,
interest in jazz, my um, being a multi instrumentalist, my engineering, producing, all of those things are part of being a film music maker. And so I moved to LA specifically to get into film about 11 years ago, but to get your foot in the door is very difficult. And
yeah.
that's right when all the opera and theater stuff really started picking up for me and took over. And so then I was still in LA, but constantly in Europe working on that stuff. And it's been through going through that journey of theater and opera that has led me back to film, and realizing how closely related those skills are is um, amazing. Like
Yeah.
reading a script and coming up with ideas just off of a script or a libretto is what I've been doing for the last 10 years. And so um, as soon as I was offered a film, it was relatively easy to jump in.
Isn't it incredible that sometimes I can speak for myself and a few of the people I've spoken to, and I know, and of course your story too, is that sometimes that path that you want to take to the destination, no matter how much you try, it goes this ways and that ways. And just somehow when you don't see it going to the destination, it somehow just ends up back in that direction and then it swivels away again. It's just such a
Absolutely.
cool thing at the moment. It's not cool, obviously.
Right. Right.
In hindsight, it's an incredible that there's just so many different ways to go to where you want to go, no matter what field you're in.
Absolutely. And I feel like one of the lucky. I'm not lucky, but like one thing that I do pride myself on is, you know, uh, noticing when an energy line is open. And like I said before, as long as it's music related, I will go down
Sure.
that path and check it out, and yeah, I've just learned through the years of watching other people, like if it's something that you really should be doing in that moment, that the energy line will be
Yeah.
open for it,
Yeah.
so there's there's plenty of stories where you just like fight tooth and nail to break through, and you finally get the thing, and it's like, it's the Hollywood version of just, the thing. But for me, it's just actually, it's not the path of least resistance because I'm lazy or not confident in myself or my skills or anything like that. It's legitimately just like I don't have to fight against the 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 those walls. There's other avenues to go
For
down.
sure.
So if those are open and that one's closed, um, don't be afraid to pivot, and
Yeah.
yeah, because like you said, it does all swirl around, and you find yourself back in that spot.
100%. Um, Going back to exhibiting forgiveness, the
Hmm.
process of coming up with the theme or the first track, what kind of experimentation, if any, like you did, how closely you worked with the director, or anything you can share with us.
Sure. So this process was pretty incredible. So well, to you know actually piggyback on what we were just saying before, part of going on the journey of finding my way back to film is the relationships you make along the way, friendships you make down all these different paths. The way I actually got the film was my friend Michael VQ, who is now Titus, the director's. He's the president of film for Titus's company, Revolution Ready. And I
Mm-hmm.
played in bands with him for off and on for 25 years. Um, Sometimes we're like in close touch for a while or touring together. And then other times I won't hear from him for 5 years, things like that. But I get a random text from him one day saying, "Hey, I'm working for Titus. He's got this script. We're interviewing composers right now. You interested?" And so it's these you never know where these friendships and relationships are going to
Yeah.
lead, and it's important to recognize. But the process itself, um, I was so keen on getting into film that when they did send the script, I read it the day they sent it. And um, like I said, the skills that I didn't really even know that I was developing through theater and opera was being able to read a script or libretto and fully imagining a world and imagining scenes in your head, and really um seeing colors, seeing the whole picture. Because in opera, for instance, you don't get what you would get picture until the very last moment when everyone's on stage in costume and everything. You have to create all, like every scene. You have to create the flow and the emotional dynamic of the scene, and you have to put a lot of thought into what the whole thing is going to feel like, so that when you get to stage, it feels right. Because if the music is way too big for a scene or too small, it it's just going to feel wrong. So you put a lot of thought into that when you're working on an opera. Um, and so what I did when I read the script was um, immediately sit down and I wrote 6 pieces of music. And
Hmm.
I wanted the gig so bad, I hired real string players, hired real horn players, and made 6 full pieces of music and mixed them, mastered them, sent them over in 2 days. So from 2 days from getting the script to uh, 2 days later, they had 6 pieces of music that were specifically for the film. And Titus, the director, was immediately like, wow, this guy wants the gig and his music is really cool. So let's keep talking. Um, he was sold immediately, but then to convince the producers to give someone who that doesn't have a lot of credits and stuff a chance is not easy.
Yeah.
And so he was going up to bat for me and also kept kind of asking for more demos like, hey, can you try something like this? Can you try something like this? And I made probably 20 pieces of music before I even had the job. And but when I got the job, they sent me the first cut of the film, and the like 80% of the film was temped with the music I had made. And I was like, so, you guys, it's it's working, but like I thought that was all just to get the gig. And my first day of actually working on this film would be the day I was sent the first cut. And they were like, no, man, this is the music for the film. And so actually 80% of the film was scored just from me reading the script and reacting to the script and
That's
talking to Titus.
crazy.
Yeah. And then it was just about like, you know, replacing certain instruments or carving out space for dialogue here and there and just like sculpting it a little bit more. But the vibe, the tone, everything was fully set. Um, and from my little bit of film music making, finding the tone and the the feeling of the music is to me like 90% of the actual hard
Beautiful.
work. As soon as you find that tone, music is for me to
Yeah, yeah.
make is super easy. But it's like honing in on the instrument choice, the overall vibe is the hard part.
Yeah, it's similar with editing, it's similar with screenwriting, it's similar. It's just
I
about
bet.
finding that tone, and once you get it,
Hmm.
then it's like boom, 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 right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, going back to, and you can turn this question down if you don't feel comfortable. Going
Oh.
back to your days of sleeping in the car and all that,
Mm.
challenging stuff. Do
Yeah.
you, I'm sure there were many, but do you remember a day where everything seemed terrible, gloomy? Is this going to work? The doubt kicked in. Um, from a money standpoint, from emotional standpoint, everything. Like, do you remember anything like that really hit you hard?
Certainly. Yeah, certainly like but um I I was in a, obviously a privileged position where, I have a lot of friends that were doing that kind of thing, but didn't have a safety net. You know what I mean? Like my parents were very supportive
Mm,
emotionally, but they also weren't giving me money or anything like that. But I did know that if shit
and
really
yeah,
did hit the fan, that they would like be like, "Hey, come live at home or whatever," But I have friends that were doing that same struggle without that safety net, and that would have been really scary and hard. So yeah, I want to acknowledge that, but like,
But still,
um,
I mean, the fact that you acknowledge that, I appreciate it, but
mm,
you didn't use it, right?
no,
Or
I
at
didn't
least,
use it. Right. Yep.
right. So I know it was in the back of your mind, and yeah, but it's like
Hmm.
mentally it would have hit you that, holy crap, what am I going to do for tomorrow's meal or the day after meal? But
Totally.
still, I mean, it's not easy.
No,
You
it's
know,
definitely not.
it's not easy. And
For the most part, I, I, I didn't ever really, um, I didn't have too much of a hard time with it because I cared so deeply about music and
yeah,
wanted to do it so badly. And, and I could feel that even though there were a lot of roadblocks and that, none of the bands that I was working in were, finding a level of success that would have, changed my life in those specific ways. I did always feel like there that I was on a path and that it would lead to somewhere. So, um, I have,
but but then even in that, like, I'm in the industry as well,
yeah,
and just despite loving what you do, which is a
yeah,
bonus, right? Obviously, you are on
hmm,
this journey because you love it, what you do. I mean, who will be crazy enough to be able to want to do all these things just to get where you want to get?
sure,
But
yeah,
still, it's still hard. It's not.
hmm,
It's not like, like something that you're in Africa or South Asia, or, like during a war zone. You can't compare to that, but it's just trying to break through. It's a challenging thing,
yeah,
but the only thing that keeps you up and running is that love for what you want to do.
totally, yeah. I mean, you're definitely right. That it's definitely easier to think back on these things and think, when you're on a tour that's like the worst, most struggle tour you've ever been on, those are the ones
Yeah.
that you remember and you remember them kind of fondly. It's like you can look back and be like, oh, yeah, I was living in my van for a couple of years, but like uh, it wasn't that bad and blah 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 blah. But yeah, I mean it was horrible.
Well, in
Waking up
hindsight,
with
everything is great. Yeah, right? Right. In
yeah,
hindsight,
yeah, yeah.
everything is great.
I actually honestly sometimes feel more discouraged nowadays because um like back then it was all still like I was so naive about how both the world worked and how the music business worked and everything. And now knowing how all of those things function and how much is stacked against people who are trying to express themselves in not a way that you can put into a simple box. How how hard that is to break through to a larger audience. Like, I'm still living in a pretty relatively small apartment and like holding on to my cheap rent here in LA like as long as I can because it affords me the possibility to take work that I um, I really feel is meaningful as opposed to just taking work just for paychecks.
Yeah.
Um, and I've been doing this for what 30 years basically, and not just like punching in and out every day. It's like all day from wake up to sleep. I am working my ass off. I am like not only working on actual music, but doing all the business side
Oh
stuff,
yeah.
doing everything. And I find like I'm still here, like seriously, like fuck, this is insane. I'm
Yeah.
I'm like I work so hard and still, though, I have no problems paying rent and eating and all those things that were difficult for so long. That's not a worry anymore. But like, like, man, it would just be nice if if it wasn't so hard. Back in
Yeah,
the day, I was
but
willing to just like sleep on the floors and do whatever. But as you get older, you're like, I would like to have a like back house
I,
studio and
yeah.
things to make things more comfortable and easier. And it's it it's doesn't seem to ever be easy.
I don't think it'll really be right there, and not because there's a speech by Matthew McConaughey. I'm sure you've seen it. It was the Oscar speech. I think he won for the
Mm.
Dallas Boys.
Oh,
I
right, I
think that
remember
was
that
the
film.
movie's called. He talked about. I mean, I can't rephrase it, but the because he articulated it so well. But the genesis of it was, you know, you get to a certain point in your life, whether you're 15, 25, 35, you're always chasing a hero that you will never meet, and that hero is me, right?
Yeah,
Like,
right,
because the moment you achieve the big dream, let's say if your dream or my dream or anyone else's dream is to be on the Oscar stage to get,
sure.
best director, best music composer. And if you get it very quickly, Ben Affleck said that. He said that,
Mm,
he feels that I know a lot of people might say, okay, well, he's saying that now because he got the Oscar, but I truly believe what
yeah,
he says is that they got the Oscar when they were 18, 19, or 20 for Good Will Hunting. And he
right.
said it was a big mistake that we got the Oscar at that young age. We should
Mm,
have worked harder to be where we
hmm.
are in later in life. And I think that
Yeah,
it's not to make yourself feel better, make myself feel
sure.
better, but at the same time, I think it's that's important, that struggle. Because then what's the purpose of life then? Like
Yeah, totally.
what are you aiming for if you achieve what you want?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
It's hard though, I know, I get it.
it is hard. And like I for the longest time, the biggest goal for me was just like if I can have four walls and eat three times a day, like that is the ultimate success.
Yeah,
Like that is as like if I get that and with just doing music, that's it. Like that's all I need. But now as things you get older and you realize like,
I
oh, I
get it,
would
man.
actually like to have a car and to have
Yeah,
like health insurance and shit. But yeah, I mean, the the one thing that like that all that stuff taught me, which has been interesting as I have found a little more like financial success or whatever, is that, you know, I worked in such a DIY manner for so long, like just because I had to. I had to teach myself how to mix, how to write, how to do everything. Um, and um, that's all stuff like now that I have the actual tools to make the stuff, um, I'm having to like retrain my brain, like, you know,
yeah.
that there are I
Tools
now have
available.
access to the easier ways of doing the things. And like, for instance, I'll be working on like playing guitar and and struggling to get the right tone, and I'll have like six microphones on it, like trying to find a way. And I'm realizing like, oh, it's because my guitar is a piece of garbage. And sometimes it sounds cool in context, but like if you just want a good guitar, like straight guitar sound, you have to have a good guitar. And then you go, oh, I could just like buy a guitar, like and then you buy a guitar and you go ring and you go one
Yeah,
microphone and it sounds great. It's like all these ways that I've had to manipulate my tools to like try to sound legit. And now having the actual tools and continually reminding myself like, oh, yeah, you're at a spot where you can actually just get the thing that you need to do the thing. It's been an interesting process.
Yeah. No, that's true. And I was just talking to one of the directors. His name is Dan Atius, I believe is pronounced his last name. He's done a
Mm,
lot of stuff for like directed a lot of stuff for like Sopranos, Alias,
cool.
Lost, and a bunch
Yeah,
of TV. And we were talking about this, that how limitations are so necessary because that's
for
when it
sure.
pushes you to come up with things that you probably it's just like living in a mansion versus living in a like a tent. You will
Yeah,
figure out a way to live because you
totally.
have to. So those things are
Absolutely.
important, but at the same time I agree with you, like you get a certain age, you want that comfort, you want that little bit of easiness, and because you
Yeah.
can't do everything.
Well, also with, film and TV, you have to work pretty quickly. And
Yeah.
the amount of times where I like get a piece of gear like a synthesizer or something like that, and you find a preset and you go boom, and then you recognize that sound and you go like, oh man, it's that easy to do that thing, like
Yeah.
that thing that you hear, and I would have like, you know, figured out a way to make that sound, but through the most like ridiculous chain of
Yeah.
gear and stuff. And then having the piece of gear and being able to just do the thing, um I realized like, yeah, I can I can get to the same place going DIY or having the
Yeah.
thing. Having the thing just makes everything faster and
Yeah.
easier. It's
Well,
like,
time
okay,
time is money.
time is money, exactly. Um so yeah, it's been like the last five to mostly like 5 years I've been kind of like realizing, oh, I can invest in myself like it's a business, and like make my studio decent instead of horrible. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been interesting.
Well, it's interesting now with AI too, right? I'm not sure if
Right.
you've I've come across certain videos. So there's this guy, I don't know what his handle is. He just kind of popped up on my feed. He would take singers like my Rihanna or
Mm-hmm.
Beyonce or Taylor Swift, and he will use their voice to replicate an AI and have them sing in a completely different language as if
Wow.
that was their native language.
Wow.
I mean, it's crazy what you can do now, forget
Absolutely insane.
presets now. It's like another
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
But just to sort of wrap things up, man, like what's
Sure.
on your plate next that if you're able to talk about, or are you taking a break? Are you doing any concerts, films?
Sure. Yeah. So I have no other films in line at the moment. I'm hoping that that changes, but yeah, the industry is just so bonkers right now. It's it's slow for a lot of folks, it seems.
Yep.
But yeah, wanting to do more film. But I'm doing the Great Gatsby as a stage theater show. To just play out in Sweden next year. So getting started on that. Producing a couple records for friends of mine. That's happening. Um, and let's see. I do all these or that fellow Ben Folds, who has become a buddy. He does a series out at the Kennedy Center in DC,
Mm,
where they bring in like three different artists per night, and it's usually people that haven't or hadn't worked with orchestra before, um, like Regina Spektor or at the time John Batiste or people like that, and um, they each played three or four songs with the National Symphony Orchestra, and it's an amazing, cool night. And I've become like one of the main arrangers for that event. So it's really great. I've gotten to do stuff for Regina and John Batiste and William Shatner. I actually wrote uh, um, 4 pieces of music that were under these stories about his childhood and going up into space and all this stuff. Um, and it's just an amazing playground to uh, have that orchestra as my little sandbox of going like, oh, let's try this out. Oh, you guys have a pipe organ. Let's throw that in there. Just like and Ben and I see very eye to eye in that world of like, when people from the rock and pop world work with orchestra, oftentimes it's just like still a rock band playing and the orchestra is just this like playing long notes behind it, and it's like, why are y'all even there? But with Ben, he's like, the orchestra is the band, no drums, no guitars, no anything, just the orchestra. And so it makes it super super fun
Nice.
to try to make these pop songs work with just this orchestra. So doing more of that stuff, and yeah, kind of just following the energy.
That's awesome, man. That's really great. Thank you so much, Jherek. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
How do I
no
pronounce your
worries.
last name? Is it Bischoff?
Bischoff, yep, you got it.
Bischoff.
Yeah,
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much,
cool.
man. It was really lovely chatting. Your work
Yeah,
in the film, exhibiting forgiveness is great. The film is
thank
awesome,
you.
and I'm so glad that you took that initiative of hiring people at your own dime in 2 days to produce something that ended up being pretty much the score.
Yeah, yeah,
You
it's
know, amazing story. I've
bananas.
never heard anything like that, but that
Yeah,
tells that shows that your dedication to your craft and to your work. So truly appreciate that.
thanks, man. Appreciate
Thank
you.
you, buddy.
Yeah,
Have fun in
hope to
Sweden. We'll
get back
talk.
to. I hope to
Sorry,
get
go ahead.
back to Toronto soon.
Yeah, let me know if you're here. You have
Yeah,
my email through your agent. If you want to reach out,
cool.
feel free to. But I'm sure we'll
Right
talk
on.
again about some of your work.
Yeah, sounds good, man. All right,
All
thanks a
right,
lot.
Jherek. Take care. Bye bye.
All right, peace.